In progress.
Okay, so we are in the final stretch of this mini course, and I'm going to do a very, very, very quick walkthrough of my model for self-love. My motivation for sharing this with you is very simple. It's to see that if you have a mechanism through which to fully belong to yourself, you truly deeply step into your own power. Self love is the ultimate power. Love is the ultimate power. The world changes when we practice self love. So much of the circumstances we are living in today is because we are experiencing life from a place of fear and scarcity rather than abundance and wholeness for ourselves. Each and every single one of us is brought to this earth so that we can practice our skills, our talents, our gifts, and so that we can contribute meaningfully and completely and wholeheartedly to the world. But when we are operating from a place of fear and scarcity, we don't give ourselves permission and freedom to operate those talents, those gifts, those skills, because it might mean that we no longer fit in and that we might bear the brunt of people's criticisms and judgments and rejections. And these are primal fears. These are not small fears. These are the things that keep us separate from our dreams. So if you intend to make your way to your dreams, self love is the key that unlocks your power. So the question is, of course, do you want to live an inspired life or do you want to live a safe life? What is the energy factor of living an inspired life? And what is the energy factor of living a safe life? The safe life is one that keeps you looking over your back, checking whether or not you're upsetting the apple cart. To live an inspired life, you are going to upset the apple cart. To live a creative life, you're going to upset the apple cart. To create yourself in your own image is going to upset the apple cart. And it is important for us to know that if we can demonstrate our commitment to ourselves with time, everyone else will come to see the world our way. They will come to see that we are being true to something bigger than our fears. And they will start to learn that it is a really and truly inspired option to do the same for themselves. So when we learn to love ourselves, when we learn to heal ourselves inadvertently, we have a knock-on effect on others and we improve the world simply by being truly ourselves. So my model for self-love has got these elements of compassion, acceptance, coherence, sovereignty, reverence, and luminosity. And it all kicks off at the epicenter with willingness. Now, willingness is the ability to give yourself permission to pursue a path that you know might be difficult. This is the beginning of the hero's journey within each and every single one of us. Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to let go of past versions of yourself? Are you willing to let go of relationships that cannot, or relationships with people that cannot see where you are going and continue going in that direction? This is a tough one, but it is the beginning. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of process. It's just one small aspect of your growth and development. Can you see yourself moving forward in spite of the reactions of others and in spite of the discomfort that you might experience, in the mere hope of a payoff when you can't even quantify what that payoff will be? So many of us experience quantum leaps just by being willing. Willingness rests on courage and the ability to step into our own vulnerability. And when we are able to do this, we open ourselves up to quantum possibilities, things that are so fundamental to our current reality. In my own experience and in the experience of many people I work with, where I'm inspired by, they haven't even moved through the self-love cycle, but just by being willing, by stepping into courage and vulnerability, they open up new doors for themselves that never existed before. They override the fear reactions of their brain and they step into their heart's desires and alignment with their soul. This is big stuff. And this is not something that we can always do only by ourselves. We can do it by co-regulating, by self-regulating, and it is important that we understand that this is the beginning of becoming truly tribal. We start attracting the right people into our lives when we practice willingness. The next element is to understand acceptance. But before we get to acceptance, I'm going to talk a little bit about self-compassion. It is important, though, to know that the currency of love is acceptance. Many of us, because we are so preoccupied with the work of our minds, we think that the currency of love is understanding. It is not. The currency of love is acceptance. There are things that I might not understand about someone, but I can still love them because I accept them. And so all the work that we do around self-love is about enriching ourselves with a currency of acceptance. And acceptance of ourselves starts with self-compassion. So self-compassion is where we generate strength. It is at the source of all resilience and well-being. Many people have many different tactics for resilience, but they don't include self-compassion. And so those tactics take us back to those 4 things that we can control. We end up doing things from a place of doing and speaking. It is all tactical, but it is not transformative. And so over time, we default back to the old thinking and the old feelings because we haven't really gone through the transformative experience that is available to us through self-compassion. So when I teach self-compassion, I teach it on the basis of these 3 key aspects. The first being self-kindness. Are you willing to be kind to yourself in the same way that you would be kind to another person in the same circumstances? Self-kindness also includes self-care. It's about saying, what do I need now? And giving yourself what you need in whatever way you are able to the fullest extent that you are able to. My recommendation for self-kindness is to start off just by becoming aware of when your inner critic is speaking and asking your inner critic to take a break so that you can have a real moment with yourself and to show yourself some kindness, to speak to yourself as if you are a little kid. The little kid inside of you is still there. That's the one that suffers. And it's so important that you give that little kid the care and the kindness needed to move forward. The second element of self-compassion as I teach it is to recognize that we are part of common humanity. If we ever want to create real connection, authentic connection, we have to come to the realization and to the appreciation that everyone suffers. So often when we are going through terrible experiences, more so when it comes to shame experiences, we have this feeling that we have to do this alone, that we have to isolate this and conceal this from ourselves in front of other people. Nothing can be further from the truth. The thing that kills shame fastest is sharing it, exposing it, allowing the light to see it, because shame just grows in darkness. Everyone has difficulty. Our difficulties might not all be the same. We all have difficulty. We all experience shame. And one of the big elements of self-compassion is to know that suffering is universal. The other element of self-compassion is to practice mindfulness. It's to become aware of what is happening in our minds. How is it operating on autopilot? And interrupting those autopilot activities and replacing it with activities that allow us to move towards more safety, allowing us to move towards being seen, and that gives us the space to soothe ourselves in an otherwise busy, frenetic, chaotic reality. Then there's coherence. So this is a huge topic, but this is really the topic around alignment. Do we know what makes us us? And are we doing the things that make us us? Are we practicing our ideals? Are we aware of our ideals? Do we know what our values are? Do we know what our priorities are? Do we know what our goals are? Do we know what our intentions are? Do we know what our ambitions for our life in the long term and the short term are? Or are we just on the bandwagon of what was handed to us by others, whether those others are real or not? So many of us sit with ancestral identities. We sit with ancestral must, shoulds, and have tos. And the people who set those must, shoulds, and have tos are not even around anymore. We've adopted it. And so we act out of alignment with ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that you mustn't allow the ancestral ideals to be part of your life. What I'm saying is to make it part of your life as part of your chosen identity, not your default identity. Knowing ourselves and being ourselves is what allows us to be authentic. The world that we live in is designed to take us away from our authenticity. Comparisons take us away from our authenticity. And never before in the history of mankind have we had more opportunity to compare ourselves to others. And the sad reality is that when we turn to things like social media to create those comparisons, we are taking the real raw version of ourselves and comparing it to the photoshopped, scripted versions of others. We perform a great injustice when we compare ourselves to others and we take ourselves out of alignment with ourselves. So the question is, where are you in alignment with yourself? And to what extent are you out of alignment with yourself? Where are you being incoherent? I've spoken in the previous model about autonomy, so I'm not going to repeat it here. But autonomy is about becoming the final authority in your life, the primary authority in your life. Are you the decision maker of your life? Or are circumstances prescribing your decisions and your course of action for you? Are you allowing difficulty and discomfort to stand between you and making the best decisions for yourself? Or are you able to rise above them and to know that you truly have your own back, that you are able to recover from whatever adverse circumstances might arise from your decisions? Two things that truly interfere with our autonomy is the first, we don't have permission from ourselves for ourselves. We are looking for permission from the world around us to do the things that we want to do. And the second is that we don't make active decisions. It's almost as if we are funneled into a course of action through a series of situations and circumstances and just things that happen. But for us to become truly autonomous, we are the final arbitrator of our next step. Then there's reverence. Now, if I asked you when last you celebrated yourself, I'm quite sure that the vast majority of people will have to pause for a moment. If I ask someone what they need to improve about themselves, they are able to give a long, long list of improvements that they can undertake. When I ask people what their strengths are, when I ask them what their talents are, what their gifts are, it is not as easy to create as long a list. Part of the reason why it is so difficult is because we do not have a practice of holding ourselves in reverence. I am delivering and rendering this video during Women's Month. One of the biggest challenges for women themselves is to let go of the inner critic, to let go of constantly speaking down to themselves about who they are, what they've done, and how they've performed. A part of self love is to truly know how to celebrate ourselves. One of the reasons why we are not able to step into reverence is because we are told at a young age, when we are proud of ourselves, to not be conceited. And we are told that pride is a bad thing. There's a big difference between being proud of ourselves and practicing hubris. And so these are distortions that we need to clarify in our thinking. When are you able to be truly, truly, truly proud of yourself? When are you able to truly celebrate yourself? When can you take positive feedback and just hold it close and savor it? If you are able to do this, you are well on your way to practicing self love. I'll be honest with you, this is something that I still struggle with. But what has happened now is that at least I'm catching myself when the self criticism comes up. I want to offer you a challenge. Can you, for a full day, not criticize yourself? And when you can do that, can you do it for a full week? And when you can do that, can you do it for a full month? That for me would be a real turning point in the self love journey we have with ourselves. The final element is luminosity. Every single human being comes to this world with a brilliance. Some of our brilliance sits in our minds and our intelligence. Others sits in our creativity. Others it sits in our heart. Others it sits in the way in which we are able to make things truly beautiful. With others, we know how to soothe people. There are endless ways in which we have brilliance. But when we are truly able to step into a relationship of self love with ourselves, we can bring our luminosity and our brilliance to the world. We are safe enough to stretch ourselves beyond the confines of the shadows, and we can go into the light and we can shine our own light. It is so important that each and every single one of us recognizes and registers that we are here to create and to contribute. And in order to create and to contribute at a higher level, self love is part of the journey. We are not brought to this spinning rock to not love ourselves. We are brought to this spinning rock that we call Earth to love ourselves deeply so that we become unafraid to be ourselves fully and to bring our talents and our gifts to pass in the world. So here is to your big dreams, your beautiful, gorgeous dreams. In this veiny reality, we must recognize that the world needs courageous and intuitive leadership. In a world where everything feels incomprehensible, the certainty we need to create is the certainty within, the ability to be autonomous around our decisions and to truly allow ourselves to fail actively and to know that we can catch ourselves, to know that we can play and experiment and live with the consequences of that play and experiment. This is not about throwing caution to the wind. This is about trusting ourselves deeply. And when things go wrong, knowing that we are safe with ourselves. With self-love, you can truly own your power. Your power is infinite. Yes, you've got limited power. The 4 superpowers are what I shared with you. But through those 4 powers, you are limitless. Some final thoughts I want to share with you is that if you don't prioritize yourself, somebody else will prioritize you. You'll be co-opted into the agenda of somebody else. Make it part of your daily practice to be mindful about what you're wanting to accomplish and who you need to be to make those accomplishments come to pass. And what are the things that you must interrupt and stop in order to make that possible for you? I have included a 5-part scan. There is both a worksheet and there is an audio visualization that you can follow. And I hope that you will follow this liberally. What the 5-part scan does is that it allows you to reconnect to yourself and to start hearing the voices of the parts of you that has been silenced for so long and dominated by your brain. There are many wisdoms that live inside of you. They don't all come from your mind. My encouragement to you is to practice the 5-part scan frequently at first, and then regularly over time. A tool that I want to share with you is one that you're doing every single day anyway, and that's to breathe. You and I breathe quite shallowly when we are in our automated minds. Make time 4, 5, 6 times a day, just for 2 minutes, to breathe deeply. A breathing strategy I want to share with you is called box breathing. And how you perform box breathing is to breathe and have a breathing cycle of equal times. So, for instance, you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you start the process again by holding for 4 seconds, inhaling. And so, when you do this, you really start to settle a troubled and anxious mind. Every single emotional state you have has a mental set point. So when you have anxiety, there is a mental set point that kicks in. And from that mental set point, a whole cascade of chemicals is flooded into your body. But by breathing, you allow your brain to register that everything is okay. By breathing deeply, you allow your brain to register that everything is okay. Shallow breathing indicates that you are under threat. And so your brain will do the defense mechanisms it's accustomed to doing, and you'll only deepen the anxiety that you experience. So, on a daily basis, make space for long, luxurious breaths and claim your pound of oxygen. There is enough oxygen for you to breathe as deeply as you will need to bring yourself to calm. And then the final one is to spend time in contemplation. This can be through journaling, this can be through coloring in, art, creativity, going for a walk, working with the soil. It doesn't really matter. A place where your mind is still and you can discover thoughts and ideas that were otherwise inaccessible to you. I want to encourage you to make it a habit to see what your thinking is doing. And if you can see what your thinking is doing, start thinking about what you'd like it to do in the alternate. It is really, really important that we recognize that so much of our power is completely dependent on stepping off of autopilot and going into reflection. Far too frequently, people will say, but I don't like journaling. I don't like meditation. I don't like. Do something that you do like, however brief, however short. You will get to a place where you find things that really allow you to reflect deeply and to create new meaning for your reality. So, self love is about being kind to your mind and about truly witnessing yourself, truly seeing yourself, truly being attentive to yourself. And I want to leave you with this thought: you are really and truly the best and the most important project you will ever work on. Thank you. Please do be in touch. I hope that I will hear from you, and I hope over time that I will get to know you better. Bye for now.